Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Horse Business. Today we're joined by Sophie, the Managing Director of Carvago, who's going to share with us exactly what their vision is for the equestrian industry, taking it from an industrial to a digital era, highlighting to you how you can take your equestrian business and take it forward in technology. Hello, Sophie.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me here today.
Yeah, no worries. It's good. Good to be here.
So, who are you?
Who am I? That's a question. Okay, so I am Sophie, obviously. I work for a company called Carvago. So I'm currently the Managing Director for all of the UK and Europe, which is a task in itself.
I bet.
But yeah, it's good, and Carvago's great company to work for. But yeah, that's who I am, basically.
Fantastic. And you've been part of Carvago for a long while?
2 years, just over 2 years now. So I joined back in December 2022. Okay. So I came from working at Kiso International at the time. So I used to run their events and do some of their marketing and comms. And I came straight out of university and went there, really. So I've only really worked in the equestrian industry, which is interesting. But yeah, being an avid horse lover myself, I mean, if anyone listens and follows me on socials, they know that I'm some crazy horse farm living. Like I've got random cows around and everything. It's just a bit crazy. But yeah, it's good to be sort of like in the industry as well as working within it, because I think you sort of get to know a lot more and you understand the trends which are going on. You understand sort of the equestrian life, which I think is so important when you're working in the industry. So yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun.
I think it's especially important because the industry that you're now in with Carvago is actually quite dissimilar. It's quite different to the equestrian industry.
Yeah.
Because the equestrian industry is very much industrial and Carvago is very digital.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about Carvago. Where did it start and where's it going?
Oh gosh. So Taz is probably going to tell me off if he ever hears this. Taz, his full name is Sophie, but everyone calls him Taz, so he won't mind you calling him that. So he actually began the business back in 2019. He is former at Yum Brands, which is the parent company for Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and another one. Can't remember the third one, but he'll remind you. So he was working at Yum Brands for quite a long time. He was very successful in his role there. He actually then quit, and I think I remember him telling me the story that when he quit, the CEO at the time who he reported into, they said, "You must be absolutely mad! Like, why on earth are you going to do this?" And he turned around and said, "I won't go to my grave without building Carvago." So he is an in and out passionate horseman. Like, when I say to you he is obsessed with horses, I actually have to tell him off when we go out on trips because he's just so crazy about horses. He runs around. He's like nutty. So he grew up around horses. He's always ridden. He's very much into horsemanship, natural kind of ways. He's originally sort of lived in Saudi Arabia. He came over to the UK and went to boarding school at Warwick. So he studied everything all of his education was done pretty much in the UK. He went to Warwick boarding school. He then went to Loughborough University, which is where we have a weird connection because we both went to Loughborough at very different times, can I add? So yeah, whilst he was studying at school and whilst he was at university, he actually trained with Ingela Larson-Smith, who is very kind of well renowned for her natural horsemanship. So he's always grown up around horses. He's always had a passion for it. He often says that he was the weird kid at school, that just everyone else was off playing cricket or playing football or doing whatever, and he was sitting there reading Arab books and studying horses. So he's an out and out horse person. Like I can't even explain how mad about horses he is because he puts me to shame. Like I'm actually quite tame compared to Taz. So he left Yum Brands. He began working on Carvago in 2019. Unfortunately, then the pandemic hit, which was hard for everybody. So he sort of spent a lot of that time there doing a lot of research, doing a lot of kind of building of the technology in the background to just see how it worked, try and test it with a few people, work with these different venues as well and different equestrian businesses who might have kind of slowed down their operations because of the pandemic hitting. So he could actually spend quite a lot of time with them on Zoom calls, doing research with them to just find out like what are the pitfalls in the equestrian industry. Taz has a very unique background in that he studied AI and platforms at MIT as well in the US. So he's very, very much got this background of technology, but with a passion for horses. So he's always wanted to combine that together. And I think in the equestrian industry, it's so unique to have that sort of have both sides, because as you've just said, like the equestrian industry is so industrial, it is so backwards, like it's not at all in the digital era. So I think to have someone that's got that speciality in both was very unique, and he wanted to harness it. You know, there's a gap in the market for it, and he saw that, and he wanted to be able to fulfill that with the skills that he had. So as I say, he did a lot of research, did a lot of design with different businesses. He then started to launch sort of more as we came out into kind of 2021-ish. Worked predominantly at the time, he was based over in Singapore with his work. So he worked quite heavily over there. And then we actually, just before I began, Taz actually got picked up by the Global Entrepreneurs Programme. So it's run by the UK government, and they basically pick 100 startups every year, which they see have potential. And they see to kind of, they want in the UK basically to sort of bring over and they know that can contribute to the UK economy. So he got enrolled onto this global entrepreneurship program. The business then got inverted over to the UK. So we are tied with Warwick University. As part of that program, they kind of like buddy you up with an institution basically. So Warwick University is who we're sort of buddied up with as such. And then I joined in December 2022. So when I joined, it was going, like the business was working, and we were working with different equestrian businesses from around the world. So I think at the time we maybe had businesses in about 20 different countries, and I was like, oh wow, like this is an interesting concept. And when I first met Taz, I mean, when you meet him, he's so like awe-inspiring as a person, and we often make the joke that people get Tazzed because like he just talks and talks and talks for hours.
I have to say, I was like given that term at London International after having a conversation with him. Absolutely inspirational man, though, honestly.
Yeah, you got Taz, definitely. But I think when you speak to him, you see how much passion he has for what he does, and it makes you kind of like want to be so involved with Carvago and what Carvago does. So as I say, I met him a few times before I started working, and I thought to myself, you know, it's a bit of a gamble. Being in the equestrian industry, I know how adverse people are to technology and to being in the digital world. So, but I thought, you know, we've got nothing to lose. The industry's got to go that way at some point. So who better to do it with than someone that's got the background of both? So I joined the business back then. As I say, it was running. We had people operating. Was the product the best? No. Did it work? Yes, but in like its basic form. At the time, we had very much a stigma of being just riding holidays, which, okay, great. We do some riding holidays, and we have businesses that operate with us and they offer their riding holidays through the platform, but we're so much more than that. And I think it's trying to get that across to people, which can be difficult at times. So within the UK context, obviously, we don't necessarily have as many riding holiday providers. We have where you can take your own horse on holiday. We have the odd ones, maybe Wales, Ireland, but I mean, the weather's so bad, you don't want to go on a riding holiday in the UK. I mean, come on. If you go to like South Africa and go on a safari, I'd rather go there than, I don't know, Lincolnshire. So, no offense to Lincolnshire, by the way. So I sort of came in initially on a UK business development basis to look at how can we grow Carvago in the UK and what are the different opportunities that we have. So I looked a lot into riding schools, into people offering riding lessons, so maybe freelance coaches and instructors. Also looking at people who are offering kind of like tickets for equestrian events, which is quite we never thought we would go into that, but actually I had a few businesses approach me about it. So we've looked into more on that side. Looking at livery services as well, looking at people who maybe offer not necessarily riding holidays, but like trekking rides, for example. So we work with a really nice place in Wales that offers like trekking rides around the mountains, which is amazing. It was trying to pick up these different sorts of businesses in the UK that we could really sort of like work with to embrace with the technology. So as I say, sort of my journey through Carvago started there. I then, as I worked closer and closer with the hosts, understanding their needs, what do they actually want from the technology? How do they understand it? Like how do their brains work with it? I think is really important to understand. I then naturally moved over to more of like a product role. So I worked very, very closely with the technology team. At the time, we had only 2 developers. I then told Taz that I wanted a whole new website, a whole new host dashboard, 2 new apps. And he was like, I think we might need more than 2 people. I was like, yes, please. So we actually worked with a couple of great technology kind of development agencies who developed the products for us. We did a massive release last September. So with that, I kind of moved to a head of product role just because that's how I ended up. We then brought in more of a sales team. We brought in a marketing team. Like we started to grow the business. I mean, at the time I joined, I was the only person in the UK. So I was just sort of like fighting fires on my own.
And how many have you got here now?
We've got 6 or 7 here now,
okay. Well,
which doesn't seem like loads. But I think this year we'll see sort of massive growth in team numbers. But we've also got team members based all around the world.
Yeah.
So we all kind of like chip in and work together on that side. So yeah, so it's been quite an interesting journey, like especially for me since I've been with Carvago. Like I've seen such a massive change. And I mean, everyone always says like, yeah, but you've been part of the change. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I have. But like you never see it from like your own perspective, do you? And I think it's always interesting to like once you step back and you see other people and how they react to it, it's really interesting. But yeah, that's sort of how Carvago started, I guess.
Yep.
Taz and his crazy ways decided that he was going to make this sort of like all-encompassing platform for every type of equestrian business out there. I then came in my crazy ways and decided to join him and sort of like...
Well, you've sort of shaped it for the UK, really, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think it's so difficult. Like the UK, every single country is so different. And especially kind of the way that we look after our horses, the way that we work with them, the way that we see them as workhorses as well. Like some countries see them a lot more as pure economy drivers, whereas we're very much like, oh, we want to pansy around them and like pet them and groom them and do whatever we want to do with them, which is great. Like every country has their different ways. But it means that you do have to have specialists in different countries to really understand and apply the technology.
Yes.
And I think that's where both myself and the whole of the UK team have been pinnacle. Like we're all horsey, we're all horsey people, you know, and I think it's so important to be that way.
Yes.
Because then you can understand and you can apply sort of what you're doing. But
you can relate it better to your clients.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with Carvago being quite a new concept, I mean, as like a bit of I guess an overarching statement as to what it is, I guess, for people that are listening, is that it is an all-encompassing platform for equestrian experiences. So similar to how you would use booking.com, similar to how you would maybe use Airbnb, similar to how you would go online shopping, like it is one platform where businesses can onboard their services and their activities. So whatever they might offer, they can put it on the platform. And then as a customer, you can go onto the platform, you can discover new places and you can access them to be able to book online. We're moving into an online booking era. Like now you wouldn't go anywhere really without looking somewhere up online, see if you can book a ticket, see if you can book a slot, see if you can, everything you do is online now. And the equestrian industry didn't have that. So I think kind of implementing Carvago into the industry is filling that gap that we maybe we've never filled it before. I mean, it's always been so open that how do you kind of like get in contact with your local riding school? 9 times out of 10, you have to ring them. They don't answer because they're teaching. How do you find out if they've got availability because they haven't got their diary with them because it's out in the rain that's just got wet. So then the diary's gone. Like,
yes,
it's all of these types of challenges that we've always dealt with as an industry and we've always got by. And I think that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying that it's never worked because it has, and it's enabled people to get to where they are today. But as more and more customers want to look on websites, they want to look at reviews, they want to be able to book online, they want to be able to pay by card, it's becoming more and more of a need in the industry.
Absolutely.
And I think Carvago has kind of come in at the right time to be able to fill that. So yeah, as I say, every equestrian business from livery yards, riding schools, coaches, transporters, like whoever it might be, they can use the platform for their online payment processing. They have full access to online calendars. They have full access to their customer databases. They have in-app messaging that they can speak to their customers through. And we're continuing to develop. People often, especially sort of whilst I had the title of head of product, people would often say to me, "Oh, when's it going to be done?" And I was like, "It's never going to be done. The product is never finished. It never is."
That's tech, isn't it? It's developing all the time.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing with becoming digital. You're never finished. There's never an end point, because then you think, "Oh, we could do this or we could do that," or there's so many different modules that you could go into, that I think it's such an interesting time to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this firsthand, not only because of the importance of it for discoverability for some companies. And, you don't know who your local trainer is. I wouldn't know I know who some of the trainers are, but there's probably so many more in there that you don't know about. Discoverability is a big part of it. But also as a horse transporter, I am also well aware of the need for tech to improve. And it's actually something I have been working on, which is why I was really looking forward to this conversation. That's why I'm really keen to keep talking to you guys, because just trying to manage the bookings as we do at the moment, for example, WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, Instagram messages, calls, and it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
And I am systemizing it now. I'm using various CRM systems and trying to build it myself. But then if you guys are offering a platform at a reasonable price where you're going to be seen internationally, then there's a huge value in that for people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing. And as you've just said, Facebook, Instagram, you have so many different forms of communication where people can message you. You just lose track.
Yeah.
It becomes a minefield. Then you think, oh, who have I replied to? Who have I not got back to? So that was part of the technology that we built. And we know that some people, they can't just take instant bookings, because you can't. As a transporter, for example, you might think, oh, actually, I'm not quite sure if I've got a job on. I don't quite know if I can take them. I want to speak to them first, see where they need to go, what the horse is like, for example, loading. So we built that technology in. So you can have bookings on, say, a subject to confirmation basis, where you can say, okay, actually, I need to accept or deny that booking, or I need to speak to them beforehand. So we have all of the relevant kind of notifications that come through on your phone. So as soon as a booking gets made, you get a push notification on your watch, on your app, on in-app messaging, all of the same things come through. So it makes it very, very easily accessible for both you and for both the customer as well. Because the customer thinks, okay, well, I have sort of reserved a space, or I've kind of given my interest about booking. We do have the option as well within the booking technology that we can have on an inquiry only basis. So for example, if you said, okay, I don't actually want to allow people to pick a date and a time because it's very much dependent on where else I'm going in the country as to whether I can fit them in, we can have it on a inquiry only basis where they can submit their inquiry, you can go back to them, and then you can actually send them a personal invitation to a booking that is relevant to them on a date that you've chosen and at a time that you've chosen.
Fantastic.
But it allows them to then pay online. They've paid up front. You're winning because you're happy days. You can go and pick the horse up. You've already been paid, so off you go.
Fantastic.
And it just makes it a whole lot easier. So it's
all about that customer journey. It's about the customer.
Exactly, And it's hard as well. I'm not going to sit here and say that we have the most perfect product, because we don't. There's always things that you can improve on. But we work so closely with our customers and with our hosts to find out, okay, as part of that customer journey, what bits did you maybe not so much enjoy, which bits were harder. London International for us was a massive learning curve, because 9 times out of 10, we don't sit next to a customer whilst they're making a booking or signing up for their account or making different things. So, but there we could. So we actually learned so much. So we've actually just implemented a new customer sign-up flow, because people were getting maybe a little bit frustrated over different bits and pieces, and they maybe got stuck on certain points. But when you're working with it day in, day out, you don't necessarily see it, because you're like, well, how are they struggling? It's fine. But the way that people work is so different. And because I'm used to working in the technology seems easy to me in a way.
Yes.
And it's not easy at all. But because I work in it day to day, it seems that way. So actually standing next to people and them going, oh, I've got to pick the country code for the phone number. You think, well, because we're a global company, you do have to allow for those different types of sign-ups. But how can we make that process easier? So we've implemented where it automatically detects, and we've advanced it a lot more than we had kind of previously. But as I say, we work so closely with our customers and with our hosts to find this out. And if you came to me and said, oh, actually, as a transporter, I would really need this functionality, I will sit down and work with you. We'll map it out. We'll sort of do a bit of research on it. Okay, if you need it, chances are every other transporter will need it as well. So
Yes.
it then becomes applicable to your industry. So
Yes.
we work with our hosts in that way to find out how can we make the technology the best it can possibly be for them.
Yes.
It's not easy. Everyone wants something different.
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm going to pull my hair out.
Exactly. No, I know. And you got to pick who you work with as well to make sure you're getting, the best people to give you the best advice on what people need, to make sure that you're helping a biggest variety of people.
Yeah.
But let's not skip past London International. What an event that was for you.
That was crazy. Yeah.
It was fair to say I walked in because I had to stand there myself. And it was fair to say I walked in and walked around a corner. I was like, what the hell is So just explain what your vision was for London. What was that all about?
London International for us, it was the show that I wanted to really launch ourselves at. And I think for me, having come from Kiso, where I ran everything from their grassroots unaffiliated events all the way up to their internationals, I've sort of got that event background in me. And I think once I get my head into an event, that's me gone. Like I said to Taz, to forget about the product for a month because I'm working on the event. He was like, great, so I've lost my product manager because you're working on London International. I was like, yeah, too right, just leave me there. But no, I think for us, we'd never really launched ourselves. Like we'd worked within the industry, we'd done a few things, like we'd worked with a few ambassadors, for example. We'd done a few smaller marketing ploys, if you want to call them those. But we wanted to fly under the radar a little bit, I guess, because we wanted to keep working on the tech. We didn't want to do a massive launch, then everything crashes.
Yes.
Because you have one shot at brand image, don't you, and brand reputation. So I didn't want to do something and then it kind of fails after. So we released all the new products in September last year. And I said to Taz at the time, London International is going to be the event that we launch. And he was like, right, okay. What are you thinking? He knows I can go a bit wacky with my ideas. And I said, it's difficult because a show like that, if you don't have a tangible product to sell, it's hard. And you probably found the same thing.
Tough.
Having just a stand with your name on it, you have to be very outgoing to say, okay, I'm going to reach out to this person that's about to walk past, maybe offer them a leaflet, maybe do all these different things. And I said to Taz, 5 days is a long time to stand there and look bored. I'm not doing that. So I think for us, it was very much about how can we get people engaged? How can we make it so that it can be interactive? How can we make it so it stands out? How can we just make it fun? And I think for me, that's the whole point of Carvago as a business as well. You're allowing people to almost access their inner childish selves a little bit as well. Book a ride, go and have fun, discover a new activity, discover a new experience. So I think we really kind of harnessed that inner childlike sort of just make it fun, make it engaging and just go for it. So I put a proposal together for Taz and he was like, are you joking? And I was like, no. And he was like, get it done, just do it. And I think that is the best thing about working for Taz is you go to him with an idea and he's like, yeah, get it done. And I'm like, sweet.
And what an idea it was.
But at the same time, the whole time I was stood at London, I was like, this is all on my shoulders. If this goes wrong, I think he might just fire me there. And then, no, he wouldn't do that. But I hope not anyway. So we worked with a company called the London Display Company who were brilliant. They built our stand for us. It was completely bespoke, completely custom to us. Even when we had a meeting with Pam and Amy, who run the trade stand side at London, I said to them, this is our design. I think Pam nearly fell off her chair. She was like, no. And I was like, yes, please. And she was like, right, okay. How is this going to work? So we wanted it to be bold. And I think bold is what it was.
Yes, it was bold.
But at the same time, it was, how do you make it interactive? Yeah. So I worked with race with simulators. So we wanted to give people a taste of what Carvago could provide them.
Mm-hmm.
Did it cause a bit of so you do simulators? We were like, no, Racewood do the simulators. We allow you to kind of be a part. So as part of the simulator experience, you could sit on the simulator and it would take you through I think it was a 2.5 minute video of all the different places that you could book and ride with Carvago. So as being a bit of a Disney lover myself, I took inspiration from the ride Soaring, where it transports you around the world and takes you to different places that you might never have been able to go. And that's the whole point of Carvago. It's making it accessible for you to be able to do that. So that was the point of the simulator. That's why we had that there. And then we just used the whole thing as a bit of a marketing playground, really. We had the Wheel of Fortune, which was a massive hit for us. So people could spin the wheel, they could win like branded merchandise. So, I mean, the bobble hats were elite. Like, I'm so annoyed because I bought one home and my mum's stolen it. She doesn't even wear bobble hats. And I was like, great, that's my bobble hat gone. They were fur lined and everything. It was great. So we had things like bobble hats, tote bags, water bottles, like. But for us, people were walking away, and then the whole way around the showground, you could see Carvago everywhere because people were wearing their merchandise that they'd won. We had really nice caps and stuff as well. We then had a grab machine on the other side. Again, just a nice fun thing for people to do. They had things like key rings, little logo bugs, wristbands, stuff like that people, especially children, like they could just walk away and feel like they've done something, and they've sort of had an experience that they wouldn't have normally had at the show. And I think previous years where I've been there, and again, this is where it comes in being an equestrian myself, like I've been to a lot of these shows and you see people still sort of sat there like looking really bored. And I'm like, I said to Taz, I can't do it. Like, I literally can't do it. I'm a chatty person.
No,
I can't stand there and look bored for 5 days. So that was kind of like the whole point of it. Obviously, how we worked it was, for the simulator, people had to like book a slot. So they actually had to book a slot through Carvago to go on the simulator.
Fantastic.
So that for us was a good customer acquisition play.
Yes.
We then had, I think we had over like 500 people going on the simulator over the 5 days. So instant 500 new customers for us, which is brilliant. And then for the Wheel of Fortune and for the grab machine, we just did like a basic like marketing sign up form. So where people just popped their like name and email address, and then they got a free spin on the Wheel of Fortune and a free go on the grab machine. So again, it was a nice, easy way for that kind of like customer acquisition and to collect customer details, that then we sent like a nice email to say, thank you so much for coming. If you want to unsubscribe, please feel free. But these are all the different things that we do. And it just gets people to know the name.
Absolutely.
And I think probably the same as the impression that you had when you walked around the corner. It's like, Carvago, what on earth do they do?
Yes.
And then it starts those conversations, and the amount of people that would spin the wheel, but whilst they were waiting, they would have the conversation. They're like, oh, okay, like I get it. That's so cool. Like amazing. Like I'm going to look on your website. And we had like leaflets that they could take with them where they could scan the QR codes and stuff. So it was purely a marketing playground for us. We certainly succeeded in what we wanted to do. I think we wanted like 2,500 people's email addresses, and we thought, oh, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I think we walked out with nearly like 5,000.
So
we pretty much doubled it in that sense. And we had so much amazing feedback. I mean, even there was a lady that came up to us at one point and she was like, do you mind if I take photos of the stand? Because like I run events for a living, not equestrian events, but this is just incredible. Like I've never seen a trade stand like this before. But I think it had that impression on people that it was then like a lasting impression where people walked off and they saw other stands and then they kept coming back. And it was like...
I went back loads of times.
And then they go, can I spin the wheel again? I'm like, you're already wearing head to toe like in merchandise. Like, please walk away. It was brilliant.
It was really fantastic. And you're located really well. You have the arena next to you. So people are always watching what's going on there and then interacting with you.
Yeah. I think that was the thing, like location is so important. And for us, I remember having the conversation with Pam and Amy and I said, look, if we're going to do it, we've got to do it properly. Like I'm not going to do it half-hearted. I'm not going to sort of do a little bit, but not all of it. Like I want a good position. It's going to be big. It's going to be bold. Like, I mean, we did have a slight issue on the first day. The Wheel of Fortune had like a clicker on it that, you know, when they click on the way around.
Clicks around, yeah.
The dressage horses came in and I was like, woohoo, let's turn that off. Where it was showing horses, or some sort of highly strung horse came in, someone spanned the wheel and the horse just like side-eyed me. And I was like, someone, we need to get this clicker off. Like, otherwise this is going to be chaos for 5 days and I'm going to get in serious trouble. But yeah, again, learning curve. Like we'd never done a trade stand before. So that as a first trade stand is a bit bold. Appreciate that. But it's like you learn so much from doing these things firsthand. No,
absolutely. Huge congratulations with that. It was so successful. Very, very well.
And we had the 6-bar challenge, which was fun.
You had a 6-bar challenge?
Yeah, we sponsored the 6-bar challenge.
Oh, of course you did, yes.
Yeah, so that was good fun. I got to present. I mean, Taz and I, and Siobhan, who's our chief strategy officer, who's based over in America, she flew over for the event. And we went up to present to Gemma Stevens, who won it. And as we all approached, she was like, just be careful, the horse is really nervous. And we were like, oh, great. Like, please don't kill us. But no, it was good. Like, it was, again, it was nice to have like a touch point over that side, as well as then having the trade stand. So people kind of saw that it was the class, and then the rush of people after the class that came out to then come to the stand was crazy, because they'd sort of seen the name, they'd seen the adverts on the screen, and then they were like, oh, we've seen that back there. So they always sort of, even if they'd come, they'd come back to kind of see it again.
Yes, yeah.
So it worked really well for us, and I think London was a huge success. But it just means we've got to do it again now, and I'm like, oh,
cool. What's your next one? Well, let's not spill any beans now. No, awesome. So, why Cavago? So, first of all, what is the mission of Cavago in short?
Okay, how do I put this in an easy way? Conquer the world?
Conquer the world. The equestrian world.
Yeah. No, I think to put it in perspective, like especially I speak more from a UK context because that's where I'm based and that's what I sort of look into. But if you look at the UK numbers, you've got around about 27 million people in the UK that have an interest in horses. Only about 2 million of those ride regularly. Mm-hmm. That's a massive gap. Like that is a huge gap to be looking at. You've got about 5.5 million who, they ride maybe occasionally, but they're not regular riders. But you have to think to yourself, like, what is the reason? Like, what is the reason for that? And, you can have the beta reports. You've got Sport England will do their reports. And a lot of the time it comes back of lack of access. Yeah. And I think that for us is the mission that we're trying to kind of conquer, get to, whatever you want to call it. Like that for me is the biggest thing that I want to try and fill. Let's just give access to equestrian sports to every single person out there. And I think it's just trying to connect the dots with it as well and be like, as equestrian businesses, you can work together. Like you're not all in competition with each other. Like that's also fine. Like you can work together to offer your services to customers, because ultimately that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get more customers through the door, earn more money. You can't do that if you're sat doing admin all the time, and you can't do that if, as a customer, you can't even find somewhere to go. So I think the mission of Carvago is to completely tie the whole ecosystem together, give it an online space where it can sort of be hosted, be held. And I think it's just, as I say, like having that discoverability, having that accessibility is so important. And I was that kid I go back to holidays because, it is a part of what we do. But I was that kid. We used to go on holiday quite regularly, and I'd always say to my parents, I was like that annoying child. And my brother would be like, why do you want to go horse riding on holiday? And I'd be like, can I go horse riding? I want to do this. I want to do that. And my mum's like, yeah, okay, great. But where do you want me to go? Like, I can't actually find anywhere for you to go. We're in a completely different country. There's nowhere around here where I know like where to take you. And I think that, again, like I almost embrace my inner self a little bit, like, and my childish self when I'm working on the product to be like, but that was my life. Like that was my parents trying to find somewhere for me to go. There's so many other people out there that'll be having the same sorts of experiences. And I remember when I must have been like 9 or 10 or something, and we literally lived on the same road as a riding school. And I mean, they're very good friends of ours now, so she won't mind me saying, but we used to I remember saying to my dad, standing in the kitchen being like, have you rung her yet? Have you rung her yet? Because I really want to go riding. And he was like, yeah, I'm trying to get hold of her, but I can't get hold of her. And I think that to me also resonates, because I'm like, I could have actually been at that riding lesson so much quicker had my dad have just been able to go online and book and just take me up to the riding school. But it's those sorts of things that I think is what Carvago is there for. It's to allow people to actually access the industry and access the sport. I mean, you see so many different, every sport's the same, isn't it? I mean, every sport has its downfalls, and every sport has kind of like ways in which you can access, ways in which you can't. But I think equestrianism has always been one that has always been quite known as being quite inaccessible. Yeah. So I think it's always been that way, because it's always been quite, you have to be rich to ride horses.
Yeah.
Well, no, you don't necessarily. Like you can still enjoy and you can still kind of access the sport. So I think for us, like that is Carvago's mission, is to have every single equestrian business, horse riding provider, experience provider, whatever they might be, on the platform, utilizing the technology to allow themselves to actually grow more. I mean, we work with a riding school called Ampfield down in like Hampshire way-ish. I can't remember. completely where they are. But like they've been using the platform now for about 6 or 7 months.
Okay.
They've already grown their revenue by 27%.
Okay.
So, and they rang us the other day, and Hannah, one of our sales team, she goes there quite regularly, and they literally sat down with Hannah, and Hannah was like, so how are you finding it? Like, how's it? And they were like, it's just made our life so much easier because the instructors can go and concentrate on what they need to concentrate on. Our admin is a whole lot easier because people are just booking. It will drop them into the right slots at the right times. Like if it's full, it won't let them book. Like, and she was like, it's just made life so much easier. So we've actually been able to grow the revenue because we're not chasing people for payments. We're not having to run around trying to find them to see if they've got the extra £5 cash that they haven't given us.
Yes.
So I think, like, again, from a business's point of view, the mission is to enable every single business to have the technology, but not have the barrier to access either. And I think that's been one of the biggest things that we've done is we don't charge a sign-up fee. We don't charge a monthly fee. We don't charge a yearly fee. It purely works on a commission basis per successful transaction.
Yes.
And I think that means that as a business, you don't need to worry like, oh gosh, well, I've got to pay them, I don't know, £40 a month. And what if I don't quite make enough to be able to warrant paying that? We just say, look, we earn when you earn. Like,
Yes.
so it's in our best interest as well to give you the best technology so you earn more money. Even so, it's, I mean, we have 3 different commission packages from 5%, 10% and 15%. So, I mean, 5% is so sort of like accessible for people that it makes it a no-brainer to be able to use the technology, which I think for us is what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so what are the key benefits to somebody like that? So a livery yard or a trainer that does their own lessons or clinics has come to you and they need some help.
Yeah.
What are the key benefits to them? Is it the software? That's a bit general. Is it the booking platform?
Yeah.
Is it the taking payment system? Is it the reminders? What are the key benefits to them?
I think for them, like quite often everybody comes with the same issue, and that is, I'm really struggling to manage my admin. I'm really struggling to kind of, you know, when people get, we'll take like a freelance instructor, for example, that maybe runs clinics and does lessons. We've got a few of them on the platform now, and they've come to us and said, you know, when we get there to do the lessons, 9 times out of 10, they haven't got the cash. So then they say, oh, actually, I'll just bank transfer you after. And then I've got to chase them for the next week, trying to get them to bank transfer me because they've forgotten. I've done it. Like I've used an instructor sometimes, and I've done it where she sent me previously like bank details, and I'm like, oh gosh, 4 days later, I'm like, oh, I never transferred her the money. Do you know what I mean? But that's affecting their livelihood. That's affecting, they rely on it. And I think that's kind of the main issue that they come to us with is, how can I make my life easier?
Yes.
So for us, what we can offer back to them is, okay, onboard your activity onto Carvago. It can now be found by anyone as well as your existing customers who you can share the activity with. As soon as that customer goes onto the booking page, they can see what dates are available. They can see the pricing. They can see if it's in time slots. So a clinic, for example, they could say, oh, actually, I'm going to do like the 1 till 2 slot on Saturday. They can then just go through the process and book it. They pay for it there and then, which means the coach has been paid there and then. And it just makes it a lot easier for them. The customer journey happens in that side. It then flips over almost to the host journey where they receive that booking. As I say, they get a notification on their phone if they've got the app downloaded. They get notifications on like the Apple Watch. So if you're coaching, you can just quickly kind of have a quick glance. Yeah, bookings come through. Great. I'll have a look at that in a minute. They can then log on to their app. They can see their whole calendar. So they can see where the bookings are all dropped into, what availability they've got. They can see their revenue on there as well. So they can be like, oh, actually this month I've already earned £1,000, for example. They can go onto their bookings. They can just double check the details if they want to, and then accept or decline the booking depending on if they can take it or not.
Okay.
One of the new features that we actually brought in that's been super, super popular has been where people can say, for example, you booked a riding lesson 10 till 11. The riding instructor went on and thought, actually, I can't quite do 10 till 11, but I can do 11 till 12 or 12 till 1 or 1 till 2. They can actually send back to you, can't quite do that, but these are the other time slots I can actually do. So we call it like the proposal of new time slots feature, where then they can have that whole communication through the app, through the technology.
Fantastic. That
goes back to the customer. The customer can see, oh, okay, they can't quite do that time, but these are the other times that they have suggested. I can do 12 till 1 confirmed. Then that's all confirmed for both sides. So
yes,
that's been super beneficial because you never quite know. People do run into issues or they haven't quite got the availability there. So we built it in. And I remember when we originally built it with the development agency, they'd worked on things like Microsoft, McKinsey, they'd worked on some really big projects. They'd never done anything in the equestrian world. And I was trying to explain all of these different things to them. And we worked on that feature and we worked on another one where on the host side, they can reschedule bookings. So if, for example, you've got a freelance coach that is meant to be going out and teaching 12 till 1, but actually they've just pulled a horse in from the field, it's got his leg hanging off. It's like pandemonium, isn't it? Like when you have a horse coming from the field with everything gone wrong, you're just like, right, I just need to concentrate on this issue before dealing with that. So they can actually go onto their app and they can reschedule the booking. So they can postpone it and they can almost say, okay, I'm just going to postpone it. That sends it straight to the customer to say your lesson's been postponed.
Okay.
And then they can reschedule it up to within 48 hours of that postponement. Trying to explain that to developers that are like, well, why wouldn't you just reschedule it there and then? I'm like, because when you've got a horse coming in with a leg hanging off, like you are not thinking about rescheduling something. You're just like, right, just cancel it for a minute and I'll deal with it later. So that's another feature that we brought in where it just allows people to have like that full control over their life, I guess, and over their bookings, which I think is one of the biggest fears with moving to technology and moving to being more digital is, well, how do I have that control? So I think that's one thing that we've massively worked on. So yeah, as I say, that proposal of new time slots, that's been really, really good for like freelancers, riding schools, same sort of thing with the rescheduling. That's been really helpful. So yeah, so they do come to us. I mean, I think the booking online, paying online is a massive thing for them. It just means they've got a bit more security.
Yes.
When it comes to that financial side of things. And yeah, having their calendar, having everything there, just at the touch of a button, I guess, which is what we see with so many other things that are just like day to day. Everything is on your phone. But the equestrian world just wasn't there yet. And I think we've just sort of enabled that step into the digital world a little bit. And it's not easy getting people to think in a different way.
Oh no, it's not. It's as much as it's building the tech, it's actually a big educational process for you. So you probably have to invest a lot in the marketing to up the education of the people as well as the money invested in developing it all. Yeah.
And you're trying to shift a whole industry. How do you do that in one go? You can't.
No.
And I think, as you've just said, it's the changing of people's way of thinking. It's the change of their trust. It's the change of the way that they're like, well, it always used to work that way. And I'm like, it probably still does. Like, I'm not saying that it doesn't work because it does.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is you could make it a whole lot easier for yourself and a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really hard task. And if I'm completely honest, I think that's probably our biggest challenge is how do you get people's frame of mind to change the way that they think? And I think, it's hard.
Do you think that will happen naturally though? Although you're early in your journey in developing all of this and the industry is very, very, very early in adopting all of this, as we're seeing young influencers coming through in the equestrian space, as we're seeing that generation, I think it will start to push naturally towards what you're doing anyway.
Yeah, and I think it will. And I think exactly as you just said, like you've got a different generation coming through now. So even I go back to London because it was so interesting to see the different demographics using the technology. You've got someone maybe sort of like 50s, 60s using it and they're like stuck on every single bit and they can't quite do it. And then you've got like a 16, 17, 18-year-old that comes in that's like, done, I've booked. And we were like, wow, that was quick. But it just shows the difference of how technology is used in our day-to-day lives and how that then translates to what we're doing. Because I think naturally your younger generation is a lot more sort of adaptable to change. And I think even from like a hosting perspective as well, from a business perspective, like Amphord, for example, they're sort of their receptionist or their person that runs their bookings and everyone who uses the technology from the admin side of things there, they are a bit younger. So they don't really have that. I mean, they have had issues. Of course they have. You have teething problems with everything. But it's getting a lot less and less because they are learning it more and they are understanding it more and they're relating it as well to other like softwares. So they're a bit like, oh, this calendar's like the Apple calendar. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I built it that way, because then you understand immediately. It's like that natural kind of repetitive behavior that you have.
Yes.
So I think it will naturally shift.
Yeah.
But at the moment it is trying to push it through a lot more, which is time consuming and it's hard.
Fair
Not
enough.
an easy task.
No, it's not by any means. I think if there were businesses out there, equestrian businesses out there that would consider themselves to have a relatively good ecosystem, because there will be some out there that have done for themselves already.
Yeah.
Can this be coded into other people's websites? Can it become a plugin, things like that? Or is it just a standalone at the moment?
So that is something that we're working on at the moment, is creating like that plugin module that can go into people's websites. So that's actually in development at the moment. So it will become like almost a widget that you can like pick up and put into your own website. Because exactly as you've said, like some people have, and you actually tend to find like a lot of the riding establishments are like passed down through generations. So riding schools, for example, like quite often they get passed down, and you'll see like where it's obviously being passed down, there's like a bit of a younger generation that are running it, and they're the ones that maybe have the websites, for example.
Yes.
So you can see how like that mindset is already changing in certain ways. But they might have a website but no booking engine, because actually it costs to have that booking engine and the payment gateways. So you've still got like, you've got a really nice website, but you've got no way for someone to book through the website. They still have to ring or message or whatever.
Yes.
So that is what we're working on at the moment, is how can we have like a plugin widget that can go across to other people's websites. So at the moment it is fairly standalone, but what a lot of businesses that we work with do is, say, for example, they do have a website, they might have where they've got all their activities outlined and you can see what you could potentially do. A lot of the website builders that people use have the option to like add a button.
Okay.
So what they do is they add a button that says book now, that hyperlinks straight to their activity, which is on Carvago.
Yeah.
Again, customer journey wise, that's why we're creating the plugin, because obviously customers then like, oh, hold on a minute, I was on that website and now I've been moved over to this. Like, what is this?
Yes.
But people are getting to know us a lot more. And that was, again, going back to London International, that was the whole point of that, is how do you get the name out there? How do you become more household sort of known? So that kind of like shift is getting less and less and less, where people are like, oh, what's this and what's happening? And I think for me, like I've always said, I will not be a faceless technology brand. I will not be where people don't know who sits behind what we do. And that's why, as sad as it is, my partner always says to me, oh, for God's sake, you're on Instagram again. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're just a weird farmer, like leave me alone. But like that's why I do have like a work related Instagram, because I want people to know that it's me and I am a person and I do have horses and I am normal, like fairly, and I am actually in the industry. And the same as I encourage all of our team members to be out there with who they are and who they're representing, because I think there's so often that you can use a piece of technology and then you try and contact someone and there's not someone at the end of the phone.
Yes.
And I think from a hosting perspective, that's really hard. You're trying to ask people to do something completely different that they've never done before, and then not to have someone at the end of the phone to work with them.
Yes.
You can't do it. Like it's not. So our sales team also act as like account managers. So they work with businesses the whole way through.
I think that's really sensible in an industry like this.
Yeah.
Because where you got a booking.com and it is essentially faceless now.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to just come and plonk that in the equestrian industry, because how deep we are into this industrial mindset, it wouldn't pull us out. And I think because of the way we are naturally with our animals and everything, we like that connection with people and to build it through branding that way. Definitely.
And it's a trust thing as well. They trust, and there's businesses that I've worked with that they trust me, so they trust the technology, if that makes sense. And I think even from like working at Kiso and having that background, people know me from there. So then they're like, oh, you're doing this now. Okay, that's interesting. Like I want to have a look into it, which then becomes a really interesting conversation, because I'll say to them, well, why do you want to look into it just because it's me? And they're like, yeah, but I trust you. So you are a person that I know and that I trust. You're not going to try and get us to use some random technology that maybe doesn't work. So I think that's where we work with people like our ambassadors as well. So people like Freddie Still, he's a great ambassador of ours. He uses our ticketing module for his tickets and like bookings for his clinics and stuff. So he's naturally pushing out, use Carvago to book for this, or you can only book for this if you book through Carvago. So it's an interesting, like it's a massive trust thing with the industry. Will it get less and less? Hopefully, in a way. Like I'm not saying less and less faceless, but hopefully people will trust more automatically without having to relate to a certain person. But if that's what we've got to do to get the trust of people now, that is exactly what we'll do. And I think that's why these sorts of things are so interesting. People can actually get to know you.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think people like to be nosy as well. Like
Absolutely.
we're quite a nosy industry, aren't we? Like everyone likes to know each other's business. So it's a bit like people just like being in the know, who's running it, who's doing it. And that's why I made Taz stand on the stand for like 5 days at London. Yeah. So I was like, you will stand there and people will get to know you. And he was like, great. I'll just sort of smile and wave.
He was brilliant, actually. And so was Kira. I met Kira there.
Yeah, Kira's great.
A few of the other team as well. No, they were brilliant.
And it's funny because Kira's been in it with me. She's probably been with us just under 2 years now, actually. I think she started April, May time. She was actually the first person that I brought into the team when I joined. I was like, I need someone that is better at marketing because like I'd done a little bit at Kiso, but it's a whole minefield, isn't it? Marketing? Like you've got to be on it 24/7. And Kira came from, she's written for Horse and Rider magazine. She's worked with Horse and Country. So she's, again, horsey. She's got her own horses. Quite often she'll text me and be like, are you free? And I'm like, I'm just on the back of a horse. She's like, okay, good, because I'm stuck in mud and I can't actually get out. So like I will be in the meeting, but it might be a bit later. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. We'll just push it back. Like that's just how our days work.
That's so raw. It's so brilliant that you're all like actively in the equestrian space.
Yeah, she's often sending me photos of her stuck in mud. But I think, again, like we can then all stand there in London and actually have an intelligent conversation with people about horses and how it helps the horse industry because we're all in it. And we've got Hannah in sales. She used to work for a company called Horse Scout. So she, again, has grown up in the industry. She's always ridden. We've got Tom on the sales team as well. He was a professional show jumper. He then moved into a state agency and he's now kind of actually come back into the more commercial side of the equestrian world. But it's interesting because you don't even know it exists as a job to be in the more commercial side, and finding someone that is commercially minded but with equestrian background is quite difficult because you can grooms, riders, they're all brilliant and everyone has their own specialities and their own skills, but to apply the equestrian world but in a commercial angle is quite a difficult thing to do. And you probably find the same, like when you speak to different people, it's like how different people's brains work is very interesting.
Absolutely, even just in the transport space, just in that space, and that's a tiny space on the whole thing. Just how I run a business compared to how someone else runs a business, because they have their own box and it's their own thing, and they do that. And I'm trying to get several boxes and employ it. And it's very different mindsets and very different ways of doing things. Yeah, and no one's wrong, but exactly. But it's just it is a challenge,
and everyone's additive in different ways. Like everyone on our team has very different personalities, but it's because like. You have to be. You can't all be the same. Like you even look at me and Taz. We're so different, but we work so well together because, I mean, I almost tell him to like sit down in the corner sometimes because I'm like, you just sit over there and I'll do this. And he's like, yeah, okay.
It's a nice relationship to have.
Like, I'll say to him, Taz, I need you to switch it on for this meeting. And he's like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, and then he'll go full and he will Taz them. So it's like, in those ways, like, you have to work well together. The same as Hannah and Tom on the sales front. Tom's maybe a bit of a quieter personality, whereas Hannah is more sort of get in and get it done. Well, some people respond better to Hannah and some will respond better to Tom. So then you sort of work out, okay, who is better at managing which relationship? And there's no right or wrong way of doing it, but you have to have that variation in your team, I think is something that I've massively learned I've never employed someone before. No. I employed Kira on a whim. I was like, please work out for me, Kira, like please just, and she's been absolutely brilliant. Like I can't fault her in any way. So it's one of those that you soon learn, and we've hired people, we've lost people, like you do, and it's interesting. But I think we're actually at Hartbury because we've got a nice relationship coming up with Hartbury very soon, which is going to get released. But we're actually going there for their careers day on Thursday.
Nice.
Because they want people to go in to be like, there's more to the equestrian industry than just being a rider or a groom, which is so often what it's just associated with. So yeah, it's nice to be in a space that's different, I guess, and that we can offer different opportunities to different people. No,
it's great actually touching on opportunities there, because I've been approached personally over the past few months from people saying, I'm sick of horses, I don't get treated right on the yards, I'm sick of grooming, what can I do differently? I don't have any skill. I literally have had these people asking me this question, and now you're opening up a bigger space to go actually get out of the mud, if you like, and think about other options, commercial options. There's AI, there's so much going on now.
And there's so much coming through, but I mean, it's not the same in every company because it's not, but we are very, very lucky in the fact of Tasmore tells me off if I haven't ridden the horses in a day because he's like, why are you still sat at your desk? Go and do something. Like, go and have some thinking time. Go and ride the horses and go and I think the culture that we've built within the company is so important because it allows people their space. I mean, every single member of our staff is empowered to make decisions and every single member is empowered to say, yeah, we're going to do that, or I want to try this, or, you know, so often Kira will come to me and say, I've thought of an idea, I would really like to try it. This is what I want to do. This is the proposal to do it. And I'm like, yeah, do it. Like, if it goes wrong, what's the worst that can happen? Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. Like, we're in an industry that you can't follow. Oh, well, Facebook did it this way. Well, we're not a social media platform.
No.
Instagram did it that way. Again, we're not the same. Like, Uber did it this way. Okay, great, but they're cars, not horses. Like, so you can't follow a set routine of actually that's how they made the business successful.
Yeah, you're not following someone, you're setting a standard, so therefore
exactly. And we have done things that we've thought, oh gosh, we really shouldn't have done that, like that didn't work for us, or we've done things and we've thought, brilliant, that's successful, how do we replicate that in a more scalable way? So it's it's a really interesting time for us. We're doing nothing but growing at the moment, which is interesting. We've got a really exciting couple of months ahead, and I think there's going to be a lot of PR announcements coming out about different partnerships of brands that we're working with, because I think that is super important as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with piggybacking off each other sometimes to get where you need to go, and and we are very lucky that we are first starters in the industry, so we don't necessarily have direct competition. There's no one doing what we're doing, which is great, but then at the same time you often think, like, how can we do it, because you've got no one almost to sort of like lean off the back of, or you don't know how to do these different things. So as I say, we've got some really nice brand partnerships coming up with different types of industries as well. So in the more retail, in the safety industries, we've got different brand ambassadors being released over the next few weeks. It's fun, it's interesting. You never quite know what the next day is going to bring. Like, every day is so different. There's perks to the job. Like, I'm quite lucky that I get to go abroad quite a lot, and it's like, I'll go to that host, and then you sort of go to the host for a meeting. They're like, oh, we've got to ride the horses, so just jump on the horse and we'll talk on the way. And I'm like, yes, sweet. I'll jump on and off we go.
I love that.
Like, our best meetings are done on horseback, but that's why it's so important to have a team that is horsey, because I wouldn't want someone turning up and being like, how do I ride? And I'm like, how are you meant to sell them an equestrian platform if you don't even know how to ride? Do you know what I mean? So it's it's good fun. I
was going to liken it to people, in the corporate world. Often they play golf and they do it over the golf course. It's a bit like, but it's a little bit different, but it's similar.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I remember we went to Andalusia once. I think it was last year, maybe the year before, and we had a host out there, and they'd sort of been on the platform for a while, but they hadn't really sort of been overly engaged. Maybe they didn't really understand it. There was a bit of a language barrier there as well. So I said to Taz, right, we're going to get in the car and we're going to go there. So we went over there, and he was like, oh, like, so pleased to see us. But almost because his English wasn't the best, conversing over the phone was difficult. So he was like, oh, like, jump on the horses and we'll go out for a ride. It was the best meeting we'd had. And like, afterwards, he was completely sold on the idea. Like, they've used us quite a lot. So it's those sorts of situations that I think are also really important in building that relationship and that in-person trust. Again, it comes back to that trust thing. Like, and I think that's, for us, one of the biggest things that we try to do a lot. And engage with our hosts in that way, I guess. Absolutely.
It sounds like you're very much in the stage of building the know, like, and trust. And they often say you need sort of 7 to 10 touch points before someone actually starts to recognise you and acknowledge you. And that's what you're building through London, through going to see people. So exactly,
And I think it is, you can't undervalue its importance on that front.
Let's finish off on what is the future for Carvago. We've touched on it many times, but let's summarise. Where are you going? What do you want other people to do? Yeah. And if they hear this, what can they do about taking a step forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I've said, like, we want to get around the world. And I think now we're in 60 plus different countries. And I think for us, we're never going to stop growing. And the more and more that businesses get to know us, they get to see us, they get to understand the benefits of being on the platform, it's just going to grow. So I think the future is looking very bright in that sense. We are onboarding businesses every day. We're working with really nice, as I say, brand partnerships that are going to really enhance what we're doing. And there's a lot that we're going to do. And there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes of like other technology advancements as well that we're going to be integrating with the main day-to-day side. So one of the things that we're working on quite a lot at the moment with Hartpury University is the competitions module. So we're actually working on developing that out further. So taking entries for shows, working on kind of like the in the background for the hosting side, for the business side, how are they managing the shows? How can we actually, obviously coming from Kiso, I know having used other softwares, maybe what bits are missing, what we can sort of like really enhance with that. So we're working, as I say, with Hartpury very closely on developing the competition module. We're also going to be looking at developing more of like an equestrian management type module that can go very nicely with the software that we're offering. So that will include things like if, for example, you've booked a lesson, you can match horses and riders to the right abilities, stuff like that. So we can also then start to track the economic performance of horses, which will be really interesting. So we can look at kind of starting to mine that data a lot more from that side of it. So yeah, I mean, the list is endless. I think Siobhan, as I mentioned earlier, she's our chief strategy officer. She joined us back in December and she's over in America. And again, every market is so different, but she came back to us the other week and was like, I've got 46 different ideas of different things I'd like to do. And I was like, oh heavens, that's a lot of different ideas. I think we'll narrow them down. But it's stuff like that it just shows you the breadth of what the potential is in how undigitalized the industry really is. So I think it's trying to tie all the different pieces together in that sense. So yeah, we're not going to stop developing. We will keep going. We're very, very lucky that we'll have some announcements coming out soon about things like our investment story and how we've kind of navigated through that and where we're at with it. And I think we're very lucky to be in that position where we can build and we can kind of like take a hold of the industry in that sense, which from my knowledge, no other equestrian technology business has been able to do in that sense. I mean, there are some out there that are smaller, maybe riding, what do they call them? Like riding holiday travel agency type places.
Okay. Yeah.
You've got a few that are things like the competition module.
Yeah.
You've got a few kind of competitors in that space as well. But, you know, things stagnate and you can't afford to keep building the technology. It is expensive to build it. And you can't like as a standard business, I would say, like, you can't afford to just keep throwing money down the drain with it. Like it's just not possible. So we are in a lucky position that we do have the backing to be able to do these things. So we will continue to do that. I think for us, gaining more on the global reach will be really interesting. And that's why we're starting to strategically build teams in different countries.
Yes.
So as I say, Siobhan is sort of heading everything up over in the US. So we'll start to really enter the US market. I'm like, you can do that. Like, that is massive. Like, I'm not getting involved in that as well.
UK Europe
like,
is right on its own.
Yeah. But yeah, even from my standpoint, obviously the UK has been a main kind of focus point for us. Now I've got quite a strong and core team in the UK. I can almost say, okay, you guys crack on. I'm going to start to look at Portugal, for example, which is another one of our fairly big markets. It's where Taz lives. We've got a few team members out in Portugal as well. So we can start to really embrace working with the places over there. So working on a global scale is definitely going to be on the cards more so than it has been, I guess, for the next year. I mean, as I say, we are global in that sense that we work with businesses from around the world.
Yes.
But it's trying to sort of like, you can't conquer the whole world in one go. You just can't. So it's trying to break it down and build the teams in the relevant places. So we'll be doing that a lot more over the next kind of few years. But yeah, I think the important thing to note for maybe businesses that see this, watch it, read it, whatever, listen to it, is that we're not trying to take over the traditional ways. We're not trying to get rid of them in any way, shape or form. We're trying to enhance the experience that they have with their business and running that. And I think it's not trying to discard what they've ever done before, because it has worked and they've got to where they are now by doing that. It's then trying to actually allow them to get into the digital world. And as you've said before, like, you've looked at building technology yourself for the transport side. It is so expensive. You cannot do it on your own and get the best in class product. These people need to be able to lean on someone. So we're just being that person that they can lean on to be able to enable them to step into that world where they can become digital and they can sort of put themselves online and keep up with the industry as it moves forward. So yeah, it's getting that across to people, I think is really important for me, is to say, you know, anyone can work with us, whether they're a riding school, individual coach, a farrier even, whether they're if they do offer treks and holidays and whatever it might be, like we've got a few people onboarding now that are like B&Bs where you can take your horse with you. And I think that's a massive industry. Like you see Facebook groups where people are like, oh, I'd really like to go and stay in Norfolk, for example. Anyone know where I can stay?
Yeah.
Well, imagine if all of those places were on Carvago and you could literally just go, these are the dates that I want to go. This is where I want to go.
Fantastic.
And they can book it all there and then. Airbnb, but for the horse world. So
yes,
it's it's moving in that direction. And I think it's really interesting.
Brilliant. I was going to ask you one final question, which we may not include in the actual final take. Airbnb have just launched the fact they're going to spend £250 million on their own platform to be the biggest travel platform going.
Yeah.
Does that worry you?
No.
No.
No, I think we have a lot to learn from Airbnb, but Airbnb offers one thing and that's travel. And I think we offer so much more than that.
Okay.
And I think, they're not going to start doing riding lessons. They're not going to start doing coaching. They're not going to start using it as a SaaS system as well as an online kind of like travel booking.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, Airbnb, they've been amazing in what they've done. They've transformed the travel industry in itself. And I think it's been incredible in that sense.
Mm.
But what we do is so much more.
Okay.
And I think that is something that we can't almost undervalue in a way that, yes, it does have a travel element to it. But I think it's extremely important to realize its day-to-day booking management potential as well as kind of like those people that are like booking stays and holidays. I mean, I love Airbnb. I want to go on holiday more. But I'm too
Don't
busy.
we all? Don't we all? Yeah, no. So you got a much better back-end system and you're doing so much more and it's all equestrian based.
Yeah, and I think as we've said before, like the equestrian industry is very interesting in that sense that they almost don't trust things that aren't equestrian. Like it's if I don't see people necessarily putting their horse holidays on Airbnb. Some people do, but I don't necessarily see it being a massive shift because as I've learned building the product, they need to know what size horses are coming. They need to know what stables they need. They need to know what grazing they want. Yeah. Airbnb aren't going to do what we do in the fact of, oh yeah, we'll build something for you. Like it's not like that. So, but one last thing that I should probably say, otherwise Kira will kill me, is that for businesses to onboard themselves, it's completely free to do so. So you can literally go onto our website. You can sign up for free as a host. Once you sign up as a host, one of our sales team will be in touch. So probably either Hannah or Tom, especially if you're in the UK. They will be in touch. They will help you to set everything up. So one of the nicest things about what we offer is that we actually have an in-house content team that build your pages for you. They build their activity pages as well. So you don't have to do the whole ball ache thing of like setting everything up and writing up descriptions and things like that. We have a whole team that will do it for you. So again, reducing that kind of barrier to entry. Once all that is approved, it will go live onto the website and they can start transacting. So it's quite literally as easy as that. Mm-hmm. We've had hosts go live within like 2 hours of signing up. So it's super quick in that sense. But yeah, we like to make sure that hosts are completely happy with their pages before they go live and that they have full involvement throughout that as well. So yeah, it's an easy process. There's no barriers to entry on that side of things. No costs, as I say. And it's, you may as well join. Like there's no downfall. That's what I always say to people. Like it doesn't cost you anything. So you may as well just join and then you can see how you get on with it. And once the people work with the teams, then they know that it is beneficial. So yeah. No, absolutely. It's good fun.
So where can they find you apart from Carvago.com?
Oh gosh, socials everywhere. We're Instagram, Facebook. A lot of us have personal Instagrams as well that are work related. So if anyone wants to reach out to my Instagram, I think is like Sophie_Carvago. If anyone wanted to reach out to me, I can talk them through the process. But also things like in magazines. So we've just had a few in Your Horse, for example. We've got a few features coming up in there. We'll be at a few different trade shows coming up this year as well. I don't want to divulge just yet which ones we're going to because we're just in the final stages of planning everything. But
are you going to the National Equine Show?
I will be there as me, but not as like as a business. But if anyone sees me, they can flag me down. I might go in disguise.
Take your little badge off.
But yeah, we're pretty much everywhere. So everyone can get in touch.
Brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much for joining me today.
No worries.
It's been insightful and it's a topic that's going to continue to be showing up on the show as I'm very much looking at it for myself, but also as an industry changes.
Yeah, definitely.
It'll be great to keep in touch with you.
Definitely.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem.